So we are excited. We have a couple guests tonight that are very thrilling. And the first of those guests is a Chicago dude who has been in a lot of bands and records a lot of bands. And you know who that is. So let's bring to the stage Steve Albini.
This is the best attended gig I have been at in a while.
Well, thank you for doing this, Steve. We appreciate it.
No problem. I live in the area.
Now, okay. Now, I interviewed you one other time on the radio, and it seemed like you were mad at me the whole time.
Snippy is just my normal mode of communication. That's all.
You know that mics need to go higher up, right? How am I telling you this?
What?
You don't know about mic placement? I thought that was your thing.
I never hold it. You know, normally there's a machine that holds it for me.
Oh, well, because you called in my radio show, and then you were like, a couple minutes in, you're like, if this is what you're going to keep doing, I'm going to hang up.
I don't remember the incident, but I totally believe you. I believe you.
You thought I was making fun of you, I think, because I was saying I liked you.
Aww. Wait a minute.
What? Oh, no. What are you doing?
I'm going to tweet it.
You're going to tweet this? That phone actually has internet access? That strange old phone?
I know for sure that it has 4 letters to a button.
All right.
That's the phone they made before they made those giant brick-shaped phones in movies.
Quit making fun of my jitterbug. This is one of the few benefits of turning 50 is half-price movies, and then you can carry a jitterbug unironically.
And they have to, because if you're over 50, they call the phone the jitterbug because that's like an old dance. Is that what that is? Is that why it's called the jitterbug?
Do you remember?
You're really, really quick. I got to say, nothing gets by you.
I can't say anything to that.
All right, just finished the tweet. Okay, there we go.
And what is the tweet? What did it say?
I just said Scharpling just said he liked me.
Oh, that's nice. I do.
Yeah. One of my prior tweaks was that when I went into the green room, I said, Scharpling seems like a dick for no reason.
I can't win. Nice guy. I'm all right. Look, I'm not the greatest guy, but I'm okay.
We were discussing the false modesty, false deprecation as comedic parry earlier today. Parry. See, now when I hold it this close, it goes puh. When I say parry.
Well, you need a windscreen on that thing. You don't have it in your pocket?
And I...
See, you did. You actually did.
And I have to admit, you don't display the corny makes people hate you false self-deprecation. Your self-deprecation seems genuine.
Oh, it's very genuine.
And if you need to, you could hop on a train later with your bindle.
Yeah. Just watch out for the rail yard dick. He'll chase you with his nightstick, beat you down, you and the rest of the hobos. So you, Steve Albini, young man growing up in Missoula.
Yeah.
When is the first time you cared about music?
As a teenager, my brother left for college, is what it boils down to. I was a sophomore in high school. My brother left for college. And so his records were available, and so I got to thumb through his records, and I would play them. And that was the first time I ever liked music, basically.
Anything jump out at you?
He had Tommy by The Who, which I liked the gatefold of, not the least of which because there was a pretty fat roach in it when I first opened it.
Okay.
He had, what else did he have? A bunch of Alice Cooper records. The Alice Cooper records had somewhat gimmicky packaging long before that was necessary to sell a record. Alice Cooper records had pretty gimmicky packaging. There was the School's Out album was in the shape of a school desk, and the flap would lift up, and the record, instead of an inner sleeve, the record had a pair of blue elastic panties around it. Marvelous introduction to rock music for someone coming of age. And then somewhere in that same calendar year, somebody played me the Ramones, and this was after I had, I'd sort of immersed myself in my brother's sort of classic rock collection, and the Ramones just seemed completely alien, and then that started me on a sort of a lifelong effort to be as good as the Ramones.
Sure.
So,
when did you decide you wanted to make music, though? Because it's one thing if you're a fan; it's another thing if you're like, I want to do that.
Well, it seemed like a continuum to me. Even then, it seemed like if you had friends who were into the same things that you were, then you could do it. And the Ramones were the band that kind of made it. They allowed me to take seriously all the corny shit that my friends and I were talking about and making jokes about. They had, morbid sense of humor. They were into comic books. They liked, like stuff that was on the surface was quite dumb or violent or ugly, but was actually indicative of deeper thought, whatever. And it made us feel good about the goofy things that we were thinking about. Yeah. It made us think, like it's not just something that you should. This like childishness is not just something that you should grow out of. It's something that you can actually delve into and like find, value in.
How dumb do you think they actually were, the Ramones? Because this is what the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
Like, do you think they said it that he sang it that way because that's how Bugs Bunny did it, or that he didn't know how to pronounce massacre?
Both valid responses. Mm-hmm. Right?
Okay.
Also, think of a word that rhymes with massacre.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a fair point.
Yeah.
Yes.
Quite a few words rhyme with massacre.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So. Yeah.
Now, you moved to Chicago what year?
1980.
Who was the first like-minded person you met here?
Wow. Well, I went to a record store in Chicago called Wax Trax at the time, and there was a guy named Marco Pizzotti who worked at Wax Trax. I'm probably getting my time continuum all screwed up here, but I recall Marco working there, being behind the counter, and saying something like, there are better records than that. Things like that,
Yeah.
What was the record that he was trying to steer you away from?
Hard to say. It might have been a Stiff Little Fingers record. I mean, granted, the thing is, they only had pretty good records there at that point. So it was a pretty good record regardless. But he might have thought, and he would have been right, that there are better records than the second Stiff Little Fingers album, which kind of sucks for a Stiff Little Fingers album.
For people, fair.
We have our Stiff Little Fingers authority.
Yes.
That checks out.
Yes, he will concede.
It's good someone's fact-checking tonight.
Now, as somebody who was a big somebody who was written about a lot in fanzine culture back then, and someone who wrote in for fanzines, what do you miss any part of that? And do you feel like what was the good part and the bad part of that?
The good part about it was that scenes existed in near complete isolation, and so there would be like a local fermentation of a music scene where like in the same way that accents and idiomatic expressions develop in certain locales or in certain like peer groups, you would get styles of music or like variations on a theme where like like all the bands from Texas were all really weird, and then you'd stumble across one of them and they'd be like, oh, this band is amazing. And then they would have like a thank you in their liner notes to another band who were their pals. And then you'd go and find that, like, I have to go find the Stick Men with Ray Guns album.
Yeah.
It must be amazing.
It was like a giant puzzle you had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so gradually, and I kind of missed the fact that now everything. I mean, it's like everything else about the internet. It's good and bad, right? The good thing is that everybody has instant access to the world now, and so everybody with a good idea can throw their good idea up and get it exposed to people and find like-minded people and become, ubiquitous instantly, right? If you have a good idea, it will spread like wildfire, just sort of organically in a kind of a biological fashion, right? That's good. Bad is that there are fewer things that you can stumble upon that you can think, where you can have this like this like magic moment of discovery, Like, I remember when I found the Tripod Jimmy single and played it over and over and over again, like, this is the most awesome, fucked up record I've heard in a very long time. And then I found out they'd been a band for years, you know? That sort of thing.
Yeah. Now, the one thing that being able to get everything by clicking a couple buttons, you used to also have to, like, scour ads and find records you wanted to buy and send in things. What's the worst mail order exchange you had back then? Because it was pretty bad.
Yeah. Okay, good and bad, right? Good is people would often send you a record in trade for the record they hoped you would send them back, right?
Yeah.
If your name appeared on the back of your address appeared on the back of your record, you would often get records in the mail from other bands. Like, if you're ever in Schenectady, we can get you a show at the Bubble Hut or whatever, And so I got a really terrible record from a band. I developed a correspondence with this band, and the principal character in this band ended up being a really cool guy involved in a lot of other really interesting stuff later in life. His initial foray into music, shatteringly bad.
Okay.
Right? The record in. I'm embarrassed. I'm reluctant to even mention it because of the name of the band by itself is embarrassing. The band was called Tot Rocket and the Twins. Okay.
Was he Tot Rocket?
I don't know.
Or one of the twins.
Okay. The thing is.
Okay.
The dude behind Tot Rocket and the Twins.
Yeah.
Was a guy named Robert Poss, who went on to start a band called Band of Susans and get involved with a lot of other experimental music projects, did stuff with Rhys Chatham and right.
Sure.
Great guy, I admire and respect him a lot, and but that initial interaction is the sort of thing that, if, as is the case now, people are pinned with a judgment immediately on first exposure and then never taken seriously ever because of that.
Yeah, and that dude might quit music.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If that Tot Rocket and the Twins record had been on Pitchfork and been lambasted and like became an object of ridicule worldwide, then it's hard to see how he could have trudged on.
Yeah.
Like, being allowed obscurity is not necessarily a bad thing.
No, it's a good thing. You get to work off the grid.
Yeah.
Well, you're horrible.
Exactly.
Yes. So that said, what's the worst? What's the worst mail order experience you had ordering a record? Who ripped you off?
Name names.
Here's my money order for $11.
Yeah. The thing is, I don't actually remember. It was common enough that you would just send stuff off and forget about it, and then eventually, and then records would turn up in the P.O. box or at the dormitory or whatever, and you wouldn't. It would be, oh yes, I remember now that I ordered this thing, but it wasn't. I honestly don't remember having a bad experience.
Sure.
I know there was a bit of a scandal at a record label where somebody was pocketing the cash out of orders and filling the orders from the warehouse without letting on, but that was an employee scandal that didn't have anything to do with that wouldn't have affected the kid on the other end because he would have gotten his record.
He would have gotten it, yes. Yeah. But the thief would have sent those records out in a very prompt manner. Now, you did Big Black. Then you can cheer for Big Black. Then, after that, you started Rape Man. Now, do you feel like, look, you had to argue with a lot of people about the name?
over the years, there
Yeah.
have been some heated
Sure.
conversations. Not heated necessarily, but like people have strongly held opinions.
Yeah. And look, but
Yeah.
do you feel that looking back now, I mean, you were trying to be in a band. Do you feel that it was worth it calling the band Rape Man?
Well,
You know, because you're in a band and now you're arguing with people about something that's not.
the number of genuine arguments about the band's name have been really. Is that a wrap it up?
No,
we're
it's not
good.
even
We're good.
close.
Okay.
Don't worry.
The number of genuine arguments about the band name were vanishingly small. Small number of them. All of the other problems inherent in being in a band dramatically outstrip whatever trivial beef people might have with the name. There are a few student unions we couldn't play at. Crimea
Sure.
River, right?
Okay.
But I mean, the only thing that I can say about the band name is that it seemed like a good idea at the time. And I don't necessarily mean it seemed innocuous at the time. It didn't seem innocuous. It seemed like it was kind of a horrible name, right?
Okay, yeah.
It seemed worth it, given the fact that we were planning to make ugly music and that there was an aspect of the insanity of a superhero who raped people that seemed like the insanity of that was a parallel to the insanity that we were trying to mimic or that we were trying to evoke from being in the band. Now, I have to say that even many years later, I can't really defend the choice of the name Rape Man to somebody who chooses to take offense to it, because everyone's response to something like that is going to be personal. There's no way that it can't be.
Yeah.
Right? So obviously, if you're bugged by it for a reason that is valid to you, and I'm not going to try to talk you out of it.
Sure.
So I basically can't make any kind of a defense for it. All I can say is it seemed like an appropriate name for the band at the time.
Yeah. Now, Shellac, does this feel like the band you've kind of been building toward?
It's certainly the most durable of the bands, and it seems like, I mean, the other bands I was in, I think that either I or other people in the bands had some kind of expectation that it would take up the majority of our time, right? Certainly when I was in Big Black, I only had a job because it was necessary. And if I didn't need to have a job, I wouldn't have. And I would have just done Big Black while it was active. But now I kind of feel like having a job is great. And being in a band as a side project is great and not any kind of a compromise at all. And I think that's one of the reasons that the band I'm in now, Shellac, has been so durable. We just had our 20th anniversary. And I don't think we could have survived that long.
Yes,
if we
can clap for this guy, right?
Like, music means different things to everybody, right? Like, some guys that are in bands, they think that they're not legitimate if it's not their job, if it's not their profession, right?
Sure.
I don't think that's true because I have been moved by so much music that was made by people for whom it wasn't their profession, right? I don't make that parallel. I don't see it as a lack of commitment to not try to make a living off of it. I see like totally converse to that. I think of music as something that I'm willing to work 40 hours a week or more to support, like a wife and family, right?
Yeah.
Like, music to me is that important. It's so important that I don't expect it to make a living for me. I expect that I will have to work a normal, regular job like a regular person in order to have the luxury of being able to play music. That to me just seems like a totally sensible.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
It just seems like a totally sensible position, right?
Yeah.
And also, but once I internalized that and made that like my mentality, I think that the reason that I love my band so much, and I do love playing with Bob and Todd, to the core of my being, right? The reason that I do is that I never have cause to resent it. There's never a single time when I feel like, oh crap, we have to go on tour. Like, oh geez, we have to knock out another album. That just, those kind of thoughts never enter my mind. It never seems like an obligation. It never seems like it's any pressure whatsoever. It's just a pure joy.
That's awesome. We have one more question, and we will do a thing with one more thing with you. What? Get ready for this thing.
He said ominously.
Yes.
Let me tweet that really quickly.
Yes, please.
I'll be about 10
Yes.
here.
This will. What was the first job? I know you don't refer to yourself as a producer. Is there a first job you did, though, where you felt like you really nailed it?
Well, the first... all the records that I had worked on up to a point were people that I knew or people who had been recommended by friends of bands that I had worked with, like people at least one hop away in the sort of immediate circle of friends and peers, right? The first record that I did for a band that I had never met before and didn't know anything about before they contacted me was the Pixies' Surfer Rosa, right? Now, granted, I really didn't know what I was doing yet, right?
Okay.
But I got very lucky in that I was approached by a band who were pretty good and had their shit together and could knock out a record. And in more ways than one, I was very lucky that they called me for that record because I've gotten a lot of credit for making a record that sounded pretty good with that band when basically I didn't know enough to fuck it up. Like I didn't, I don't think that I necessarily had control of my ego yet at that point. I don't think I necessarily had any vision for what a record should sound like. Certainly not. I think what it was I knew that I could do like a straightforward, naturalistic recording without botching it. And so I did that in a kind of almost defensively. But it worked well. And then I thought, well, that's actually a pretty good way to do things. And then that started a sort of evolutionary process where I now do almost nothing.
Well, Steve, I'm done talking to you, but what we're going to do now, we're going to do a rapid fire question and answer thing where we are going to ask you questions literally at the speed of light.
Go.
And you are going to have to
I'm ready
answer them
before you
quickly.
are. Go.
Okay. We have our rapid fire music setting the tone.
You realize I'm long-winded and my answers are not going to be rapid fire.
Let's do your answers rapid fire. Oh, the challenge.
Is this
You wanna start?
word association or?
We're going to ask them, you're going to answer.
Okay.
All right, you want to start, Daniel?
Yeah, sure. What's the first concert you bought a ticket for yourself?
Johnny Winter and Edgar Winter together alive.
When is Pip the studio cat making a record?
She has been credited on probably about a half a dozen records already.
What's the worst city to eat in the U.S.?
Baltimore.
What's the first record you bought that your parents disapproved of?
I have. Can I tell a short story?
Yeah.
I bought the first album by the band Suicide on the recommendation of Rick Ocasek, and having seen them on Don Kirshner's rock concert, right, or Wolfman Jack's Midnight Special, one of those. The Cars played that thing, and a friend of mine and I were high as bastards and watching it in his parents' basement. And the Cars played, and then Suicide came on, and my little mind was blown. And so I chased down that record. And I was listening to the song Frankie Teardrop, which is
An amazing song?
An amazing song, just a minimalist masterpiece, just like a little rhythm and some wind noises and a dude screaming, right?
Frankie Teardrop.
Yeah.
And just an ominous
Good job.
tone.
Yeah. And while he killed... Then he murders his family, and then he descends into hell, and the final pitiful wails of him burning in hell, right? Anyway, that was the first and only time my mother asked me if I was using drugs.
All right,
That's awesome.
Describe the worst band T-shirt you've ever seen.
For those who don't know, Steve participated in our worst band T-shirt contest
Yeah, I
that we
did.
had on our website.
I can only think of good ones.
Do we have like a buzzer?
Sorry. I'm
Next
drawing a
question.
blank.
My question, Eric Clapton sucks, right?
Oh, yeah. What's the difference between a baby and a big bag of cocaine?
So everybody knows.
Oh, never mind.
Can you tell us a song of yours that your wife hates?
There's a song on the second Shellac record. There's two. There's a song on the second Shellac record that colloquially is referred to as the long, slow, boring song. And I don't think she likes that one at all. Then there's a song on the penultimate, or the most, I can't remember which album it's on. There's a song called Genuine Lullabelle, which has a long talking part in the middle. It's very boring and has some obscenity in it. I think she hates that as well.
Okay.
No one went woo for that.
Yeah.
Usually they'll go woo for anything, and no one went.
Just nods of approval.
We have made some unpopular choices in the band. Yeah.
Maggie?
Okay.
What's the last meal you cooked for your wife?
I cooked pasta. Well, not counting a plate of leftovers that I made for her today. I made her a pasta with bacon, tomato, garlic, and celery leaves.
That gets a woo? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
What's the most you ever paid for a record?
Probably about $50, $60. I don't remember what it was.
Okay.
I know, although for years, for a while, for some reason I thought I wanted this particular Sonny Chirac album called Monkey Pocky Boo.
Yeah. People are going woo.
It's called Monkey.
Yeah.
It's called Monkey Pocky Boo, after all, right? I bought that record at a record store, at a fantastic record store in Chicago called Dusty Groove, right? Totally forgot that I bought that record. Next time I was in Dusty Groove, I'm flipping through, purely Pavlovian response, Monkey Pocky Boo, I've been looking for this for years. I bought it again. So whatever Monkey Pocky Boo costs, double that.
Okay.
That's what I paid.
What was the last movie you saw?
In a movie theater?
Yeah.
Tootsie.
Oh, no. There's a movie. That was good, actually. When you said that.
I'm good. How long is it going to take you to realize I'm not that bad?
There's a movie with Sean Penn, where Sean Penn plays an aging rocker, clearly modeled after Robert Smith of The Cure, right? And there's this excruciating scene where he talks to David Byrne while David Byrne is in front of some ridiculous art project that he's so proud of. And the character was written to tell David Byrne what a genius he was and how the whole world genuflects at his genius. And I was watching that movie. I was livid, and my wife and I had a long conversation about it afterward. Like, David Byrne, why doesn't he just go jump in a volcano after doing something that?
Yeah.
What's your favorite musical?
Well, my wife loves Annie, and she sings the songs from Annie often, and she has sort of taught them to a young girl who's a friend of our family, and that girl now really likes the songs from Annie. I don't actually know that I know any other musical.
That's good enough. What was Roland really like?
Roland the Drum Machine?
Yeah.
My stock answer is that he was a brutal pussy hound.
Can you tell us what's on either your DVR or your Netflix queue right now, if you have either?
Heather has a Netflix queue, and it's all true crime. Quincy and true crime. She's been on a big tearful Quincy jag. Right. But the TiVo is almost all cooking shows, building demolition. Not so much poker anymore because there is almost none on television anymore. That's about it.
So what baseball player would you want to hang out with?
Who would I want to hang out with? I would like to watch the fights that A.J. Brzezinski gets into from a distance.
What was your favorite cereal when you were a little kid?
Quake, like everybody.
Okay, Quake. That's some weird Midwest cereal.
No, they had a thing. Quisp and Quake came out together, right? And they had a big beef between Quisp and Quake, and they got rid of Quake and kept Quisp. And I felt that's when I knew I was out of sync with popular culture.
Let's get rid of that cereal that sounds like a synonym for irritable bowel syndrome.
Okay. You have one more?
That's it.
You're done? One more?
Do you ever regret not pursuing a career in journalism?
No, there's no journalism left. I'd be more broke then than I am now.
Who's the best drummer ever?
Hard to go wrong saying Bonham, but I'm gonna say in his chosen idiom, I'm gonna say Phil Rudd is the best drummer ever.
Yes. All right. Well, I want to say thank you, Steve Albini.
Steve Albini, everybody.